Here we are again, about to do another knowledge organizer. So today we have the Year 8 Ecosystems Knowledge Organizer. So we're going to work through filling that in. So here we have photosynthesis. Now you're going to fill in the words. Now here's the sun, okay? So this is obviously sunlight. Brilliant. Next over here we have something coming out of the leaf. Coming out of the leaf. That's probably a gas. That's going to be oxygen, isn't it? Okay, now if that's going out of the leaf, what gas goes into the leaf? That's right. Carbon dioxide. Lovely. Now, this process being photosynthesis is going to make glucose. And what's coming in here? Lo and behold, it's water. Brilliant. Now we need the process of photosynthesis. Hang on, trying to move it. There we go. So, plants make their own food. They do this in their leaves. The food plants make is called glucose. They make oxygen, gas, at the same time as their food. To make food, plants use water and carbon dioxide. The energy to make this happen comes from light, and this process is called, it says up there, it's the process of photosynthesis. There we go, guys. Page 1 done. Now we're going to move on to page 2. We have some matching up of the sides here. Let's do this. Photosynthesis happens. Where does it happen? It happens in the green chloroplasts. Okay. Leaves are broad and flat. Why would they be like that? They're like that so they can catch as much sunlight as they can. Leaves have holes called stomata to let in carbon dioxide and let out oxygen. They have a waxy surface to stop water being lost. And they have veins to transport water into the leaf. This is why leaves have these things. Now we're going to look very quickly into the process of chemosynthesis and aerobic respiration. Now, photosynthesis is with photos, light. Okay, chemosynthesis, of course, requires chemicals. So some species of bacteria make their own food. What was that called? It was called glucose, using chemicals as their source of energy. The bacteria often live at the bottom of the sea. Down here, there's no light, so cannot do what do plants do with light? Photosynthesis. The process of using chemicals to make food is very simply called chemosynthesis. Nice. Right, we're going to now fill in the blanks for the word equation of aerobic respiration. Now, this is the respiration you do in your body when you break down food and make energy. So, the food is glucose. What gas do we take in through our breath? Oxygen. What do we breathe out? Carbon dioxide. And also, as we learned by breathing on the mirror, what else do we breathe out? Water. Lovely. What do we make with this? What's the point? We get energy. Okay, and this energy is used to keep warm, to move, and all those other lovely things in Mrs. Graham. Now, where does this happen? It happens in the mitochondria. Heard about those in year 7 when you did cells. They are where respiration takes place. Brilliant. Now we're going to talk about anaerobic respiration. Now, anaerobic respiration is when there is no oxygen, so it's without oxygen. It makes less energy than aerobic respiration. When humans respire anaerobically, they make lactic acid. This gives you your cramps. When you're finished exercising, you keep breathing heavily to provide more oxygen to break down the lactic acid. This is called our oxygen debt. Now, when yeast do this, they make ethanol, which is then used to make alcoholic drinks. This process is called fermentation. The yeast also produce carbon dioxide, which makes the bread rise. There we go. Now we've spoken about anaerobic respiration, we can have a little cheeky look at the food webs. So this is our food web here, right here. Okay, it's a very mixed up one with everything kind of eating everything else, apart from these two. The two top predators don't eat the plants directly. Okay, now nice. So what is a producer? That is always a plant. Okay, producers. Why are plants always at the start of a food chain? Because they get energy from the sun. Everything else gets their energy from the plants. Now what eats the squirrel? Now remember, this arrow is the flow of energy, but it can also be eaten by. Okay, so the fox and the eagle eat the squirrel. Name a herbivore. Now a herbivore is something that only eats plants. That would be a squirrel or a bird. Oh no, hang on. What am I on about? The bird eats the grasshopper. The grasshopper. Name a predator. Predators are animals that hunt other animals. That would be the fox, the eagle, it would be the bird, and the squirrel. Because the bird and the squirrel hunt the grasshoppers, don't they? Yes, they do. Which way do the arrows always point? They point up the food chain, because this shows the flow of energy. Now, what would happen to the plants if all the grasshoppers were killed with pesticide? So if you didn't have the grasshoppers, there'd be less grasshoppers to eat the plants, which means there'd be more plants as the grasshoppers aren't eating them. Hang on, are eating them. Nice, I did something. Let me try and unbox that. I don't know what I did. I did something. What would happen to the birds if the grasshoppers were killed? We'd get less birds because of less food. They have less to eat, so there'll be less birds available and less breeding. Right, one more page to do. Now the next thing we're going to look at are these definitions. Interdependence. Okay, these are things that depend on each other to survive. So living organisms depend on each other to survive. Population is the number of organisms of the same type living in the same area. Bioaccumulation are the levels of chemicals that build up in an organism. And a food web is a diagram showing linked food chains. Okay, now finally, last but not least, we have these ecosystems definitions. So an ecosystem is a place describing where the animals and plants live. A habitat is the place where something lives. Okay, a niche is a role but the organism has an ecosystem. Okay, coexist is when animals and plants live in the same place at the same time. And finally, community is all the organisms that live in the place. Okay, fantastic guys. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm supposed to say that apparently. Hope this helped.